In one of our earlier videos on the 20 powers of Godzilla, we included the Alpha call that was seen in the King of the Monsters movie of 2019, and we will compare this to the similar Alpha command or call that the dragons had in the franchise of How to Train Your Dragon, and we will see how different they are and also the similarities between them. But before you continue on with this video, do spare some time and check out our MindQ Teespring store, as we have quite a number of merch that are up for grabs. It would mean a lot to us if you extend your support. And also for the ones subscribed to us, do click that notification bell for regular updates. So here goes the video. In How to Train Your Dragon, the Alpha has been seen providing food, protection and peace for the other dragons, as well as commanding its subordinates with a unique sound frequency. So the role of the Alpha is won by combat. It seems very likely that Alphas are almost always massive dragons, with Toothless being an incredibly unlikely case. The Bewilderbeast has been seen referring to as an Alpha species, and this may be because of their size and the natural hypnotic ability that lead them often to rise to that rank. An ability also seen in the Red Death, as it can send out a command that can hardly be ignored by other smaller dragons. So Alphas hold the ability to very strongly manipulate the wills of other dragons and do their bidding by an Alpha call. In the Monsterverse, however, the Titan who is the strongest of the group is recognized by the other inferior Titans as the Alpha or the Apex Predator. In Godzilla King of the Monsters, this title comes along with a sound frequency that when used, other Titans are forced to obey. So Godzilla initially holds this Alpha call, but later in the movie, Monster Zero temporarily took this role of being the Alpha after managing to defeat Rodan in battle and surviving the oxygen destroy weapon that almost left Godzilla dead at the bottom of the ocean. And as such, the Alpha call that he made on top of the mountain over Isla de Mare sounded all over the world, and the Titans rose up from their slumber to do his bidding and destroy humanity. So how do these two Alpha calls compare against each other? Well, let's start with the dragons, as they came up with this idea first. In the first movie, we see that the Red Death and its ability to force other dragons to its will, seen when it used to force dragons to bring it a constant supply of food. It laid there in its lair, waiting for the other dragons, the smaller dragons, to bring it food, or if they fail, she would just come up and eat the smaller ones or the slower ones. So her hypnotic Alpha call can be used to force dragons even far away, like hundreds of miles away, to do her bidding, as seen when these dragons raid Berg for food, even though the island is situated beyond the horizon. The one used by the Bewilderbeast seems to be only effective at close range, but very highly effective at that. And in the Monsterverse, as said earlier, when Monster Zero or Ghidorah sounded his Alpha call, it could be heard all around the world, and Titans that were hibernating all the way in Africa or Australia were coerced to wake up and start hunting, destroying human cities like a synchronized team. We find out that these types of calls were a result of the Titans' bioacoustics, and that these were in the ultrasonic wavelength or range that cannot be heard by us humans and can travel thousands of miles in any direction, given that the source was intense enough. In fact, the 2014 Godzilla movie hinted at such abilities when the male Muto and the female Muto were communicating with each other over the length of the Pacific Ocean. So, the similarities between these two Alpha calls is that both can be used to dominate the other subordinate species of their kind, or Titan kind, as in the Monsterverse. And as seen when the Bewilderbeast commanded Toothless to kill Hiccup, the sound it made was not understood or heard by the humans, and only by dragons, so we could say that the Alpha call or sound was also ultrasonic in its frequency, the same as the Titans call when the Mutos or Godzilla or Ghidorah sounded their calls, and they were barely heard by any human except for the ones in the vicinity of the area, but the other Titans that can understand the command or their call from thousands of miles away. Similarly, the Alpha call depends on the type of Alpha in both franchises. In Dragons, the Alpha holds the ability to very strongly manipulate the wills of other dragons. Valka's Bewilderbeast used this ability sparingly, while Drago's Bewilderbeast abused it to the extreme. Drago goes so far as to say that no dragons can resist an Alpha's command. Similarly, in the Monsterverse, one can hardly hear or see Godzilla using the call to manipulate or command other Titans, but Ghidorah abused it and set them in a rampage. One can also see in both cases that only the ones willing to challenge the Alpha status or being themselves Alpha species can resist and even sound their own. One big difference between these two types of calls is the human factor. In the Monsterverse, human sounds or bioacoustics can be used alongside other Titans' bioacoustics with the help of a device called the Orca to generate an Alpha frequency that is unique and could stop the Titans from destroying the world. There is no such thing seen in Dragons, only that Drago's Bewilderbeast obeys its master out of being trained to do so, and not due to Drago's voice, and at the same time, other dragons hardly pay heed to Drago, although it may be a factor of technology as Vikings wouldn't have even known about what electricity was back in those days. So, dragons came from hundreds of miles away in every direction to Berg to pay heed to the new Alpha, and when Toothless leaves for the hidden world at the end of the third movie, it also shows that even though he can't control minds like a Bewilderbeast, he can force dragons to obey him without needing to be in an Alpha mode. He is accepted as the one and the only king to which all dragons bow to in the hidden world, even without an Alpha frequency as generated by the Bewilderbeast. Godzilla too didn't have to use it often, but he did have his own Alpha call, and so did the others, and maybe Kong does too, who knows. So that's another big difference. The Alpha status in dragons could be more than just sound. It does have some element of magic, as do all dragons do. So would these calls work on either universes? I don't know. If a dragon like the Bewilderbeast sends its hypnotic call, would the titans of the monsterverse pay heed? Or would they treat it like a mosquito sound? And similarly, if Ghidorah, who is also a dragon himself, sounds his dreaded Alpha call, would the dragons be compelled to obey it like they did to the Red Death and Drago's Bewilderbeast? We will leave this to your imagination and to your comments down below. So we have now come to the end of this video. It was short, but do like, share and subscribe, and tell us what we might have missed out with this theory. Till next time, take care.